we'll get started. And Darla, are you good to share a screen? Or
Yep, give me a second. I'll get my other computer jumped on there. And then
sounds good. Well, while she is getting booted up, let me just scroll around here and see who's on there. Casey, do you want to start with your report for President-elect?
I can, yeah. Basically, Darla will probably share her screen in a second. You guys will be able to see the Eastern Region report, so you can glance through some of the things that are typed in there for all of us, all the committees and such. But basically, since we met last in November up through January, most of what I did was in like membership chair responsibilities, just taking care of everybody's dues and membership forms and submitting that to NAAE. In February, then I participated in a couple different meetings and activities. We had one of our CDE committee meetings on February 5th. This was a committee I was on before being president-elect, but I think it goes hand in hand, and a lot of things that we discussed are things that we discuss here at these meetings as well. One of the major highlights that we discussed at that particular meeting in February was the public speaking, or LDEs, and trying to figure out a better way maybe to run those. It was discussed about potentially taking them away from the state convention, holding them another time or place, or maybe going back to one day. All sorts of ideas were thrown around basically. Nothing was decided. And obviously now with our current COVID-19 situation, a lot of that is put on hold until next year. But Alex Barzidlo is the chairperson for that. So if you have any CD related suggestions, feedback, whatever, you can share that with me, with Alex, or anyone else who's on the committee. I believe Adam is on for Eastern Region. So share that with any of us and we can bring that back to the committee. We did meet again in March, which I'll get to in a second. For February, I also participated in GLAD conference, and I just always throw this out there as maybe an advertisement for Dr. Foster and Melanie that the GLAD conferences are awesome, and I think that anyone who hasn't participated in those, it's a great professional development activity to maybe do next year. Also in February, on the 24th, there was the State of Ag Ed in Pennsylvania webinar. Darla presented from PAAE's perspective and covered what we are, what we do. Scott Shealy gave his report from the Ag Ed Commission, and he shared a lot of things that the Commission's been working on, and Scott's been doing a great job from the Commission standpoint and really supporting us and working on a lot of things to kind of help us. One of the things from that particular webinar was the K-8 focus that they're pushing out. There was some campaign materials and social media stuff sent out over the listserv from Mr. Brammer that came from the Commission. They're also working on trying to improve the SAS portal and have a better maybe representation, I guess, or easier access for ag-related curriculum. And we actually just got something. It came from Jean Keller from me. They're actually doing a little bit of a rollout of something for the SAS portal, so I'll be looking into that in the next couple days to see what they're looking to put up there, just to have that standards and curriculum and things that can be utilized across the board, and especially from a younger maybe age group. If you do anything with elementary students, with your FFA kids or whatnot, that might be useful for you to take a look at. And then also at that webinar, Mr. Brammer and John Seaman shared some stuff. So I thought it was a really neat way to just kind of get a lot of stakeholders together and discuss what's going on in the state of Ag Ed for Pennsylvania. So that was a neat kind of first webinar, and I hope we have a lot more of those to come. Then we had an FFA board meeting in March up at Penn State on the 6th. It was actually a very long meeting, but we had a lot of good productive discussions. We talked about CDs and LDs as far as the committee and what we presented to the board. We talked about affiliate membership and defining the Ag Ed student, how we can make sure dues are being paid, how we can maybe verify rosters, all sorts of things. There wasn't anything that was necessarily particularly set in stone other than maybe defining what an Ag Ed student is. and that has to be voted on again yet as well. So, and Mark can maybe talk to that if anyone is interested. He's on the affiliate membership committee for the board. We also talked about inclusion and diversity after an incident in ACES. You guys all should have gotten an email from Joanna about that. And obviously we talked about COVID-19. Didn't think it would maybe turn into as much of an issue then at the beginning of March as it has now. And also the national officer candidate process, which Thomas Gable and Libby Baker Mikesell are kind of spearheading. So they're hoping to maybe represent Pennsylvania and support those state officers as they maybe move forward to the national officer process and make them better prepared for that interview and everything that goes with that process. And then also in March, I know Diana was on this as well. There was a science standard stakeholder session. I was only able to participate for some of it. I know Diana was on for the whole thing, but they are trying to kind of just reevaluate our science standards across the state. They're looking at next generation science standards and a whole different, looking at other states, just trying to start that process of reevaluating and making sure that our standards are up to date and reflect what it is that we're wanting our students to know, to learn, and to do, etc. So that pretty much covers my president-elect report. I might just, if you don't mind, Janae, I'm going to go right into membership. And then if anyone has questions, you can ask away. But as far as membership, like I said, a lot of what I've been doing has been that as well. The roster was just updated here at the beginning of April, end of March. So it's on our website. If you have any issues with anything, if it looks like there's a typo, inaccuracy, or whatever, please let me know so I can make those corrections and changes. One thing that's important to maybe realize for our next dues session, as of July 1, National Association is not doing the physical copies of the Ag Ed magazine. In the past, you could either get a hard copy, both, or just the online version. It was either $10, $12, or $15. So now it's only the online version and it's free. So you don't even have to pay the $10, which is kind of nice. But I will update the membership form for next year to reflect that. We'll get rid of those Ag Ed magazine options at the bottom since it'll be free and everyone will have access to it. I'm hoping membership is for the most part wrapped up for the year, but if anyone has not paid their dues for the year, you can send that to me. Send it to my house if you're, obviously since we're not in school, but so if you have any issues with that, just send me an email and we'll get you what you need for membership. So any questions about any of that? Okay, thank you all.
All right, thanks, Casey. Darla, we'll jump back up to you now and kind of go back in order for a little bit with your report.
Sure. Thanks so much, Casey, for jumping in there. Kind of gave me a chance to gather my thoughts and get all my electronics taken care of. So Casey covered a lot of the meetings that we, as PAAE officers, have been representing the organization at. So I'll touch on kind of the biggest issue that I've been dealing with since the last time we were together back in November. And that's been dealing with the tax situation. So I did go through and provide a pretty detailed month by month, here's what happened, here's the exact date when things were going on. But just a quick overview was we found out that in early October that the amended tax returns were filed in the incorrect years. So that meant just a simple phone call, which we thought at that point, with the IRS to correctly just give them verbal affirmation that you should apply the payments to the correct tax period. Well, once you sit on the phone on hold for 2 to 3 hours at a time, it becomes more than just a simple phone call to authorize that. So in mid-October, on October 17th, I did give power of attorney to Boyer and Ritter, our accountant, so a CPA could sit on the phone and then make that change on our behalf. So she was very successful. She got through that, and that was taken care of by the end of November. And the progress up until that point before Christmas was we did receive a notification from the IRS in December that said, here is your final failure to file penalty, as they call it, for 2 of the tax years. So for fiscal year 16 and 18, we do know what that total penalty is. And I can pull up the exact numbers on another computer here, but it's about $1,000 per tax year is what we are looking at for 16 and 18. We are still waiting, and even as of today, waiting to know what the failure to file penalties are for 15 and 17. But we're going to fast forward to January. You can see what meetings we attended and things like that. And then in January, once we had the entire board together, the board made a motion that we should work with Boyer and Ritter to file an abatement letter for those 2 tax years and just kind of freeze everything so that we are not accruing any more interest, that type of thing. So again, as of this point, we are still waiting for 15 and 17 to know that final amount. And once we know that, then we can proceed forward and try to put an abatement in for those tax years. And other than that, on the tax issue, in early March, our notification that they got our abatement letter, and you should wait for a response in 6 to 8 weeks. Well, that was before everything was going out with the stimulus checks and everything like that. So I anticipate it's going to be much longer than 6 to 8 weeks. But I've been reassured from Boyer and Ritter that we have done everything physically that we can at this point. We should not be accruing any more interest because everything's now filed correctly. And now we are waiting on the IRS to make their decision for what that penalty will be and if they will abate the fees for those 2 tax periods. Just to recap, we have not paid any lobbying fees for 19 or 20, so we should not have this issue moving forward. And our accountant, should we decide to get a lobbyist in the future, is very well versed in what we need to do differently, so that way we can avoid paying any proxy tax completely. So that slight change on the membership form that you saw for this year that says membership funds may be used to blank, 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 that's a simple phrase that protects us from a lot of these proxy taxes that we are paying now. So should we decide to move in that direction, I am confident that our contact at Boyer and Ritter can provide us the correct legal advice or seek it out and get it to us in a timely manner to make that decision, so we know what the true cost of lobbying would be on our behalf. So that's the tax situation. I'll be happy to respond to any questions about that, either following up after this meeting or on a phone call if anyone has some information that you would like clarified. Then just a lot of the other time has been spent representing us at a bunch of different meetings. You can see the FFA board, the FFA Foundation. Did want to make note that for the first time in a couple of years, we had representation at the PA Farm Show Scholarship Foundation meetings. Since Cliff Day used to attend those meetings, there really hasn't been a representation from the ag teachers, and they welcomed us back with open arms and said, thanks so much for jumping back in on this. So that way we have that open line of communication. And then also the Ag Ed Commission meeting in December was a valuable opportunity. I was given 20 minutes to present what are the priorities for our organization, and I directly used the results from our public policy committee and the survey that they had given right after summer conference. So it was well received. The Secretary of Agriculture was there, Deputy Secretary STEM from the Department of Ed. So it was a really good, I'm going to say, step in the door to kind of show the solidarity that we have within our profession and what our needs are and how we've identified those. So moving forward, and we can touch on this later, but just so you can kind of know where we're going. Another big thing the board did after our March meeting was kind of condense that position announcement for the PAAE Executive Secretary. No duties have been removed from that role, but I simply formatted the job posting so it fits on 3 pages instead of 4, and it doesn't look super intimidating. So I do know that we will get some applications by the May 29th deadline, but if you know of any other individuals that would fit the bill, we welcome that so we can make a good selection and then have someone in place by September 1, if not before, now that we do have a lot more time on our hands in the summer months here. And then other than that, this is something that is fresh off the presses. So I was talking with the Lancaster Farming this week about a story that they're running on how teachers are adapting to this situation. And these conversations ended up with how can we help the ag teachers in Pennsylvania, which was super productive. So what they are proposing, and it's confirmed that they're going to start this next week, they're going to compile some of like the most current events that they have relating to precision ag, like the market trends, things like that, things that they think will be helpful that we could share with our classes. And you will all be getting that just as a member benefit from Lancaster Farming. So everything else will be posted. But so PAAE members will get it first, and then it will be posted in the Tuesday Teach Ag email that comes out, so that way other people can take advantage of it as well. But the editor himself is actually going to send that email and try to get that information in your hands so everyone can use it accordingly. So excited to see where that relationship with Lancaster Farming can go in the future. So other than that, we'll talk about conference when we get to it in the regular agenda. So thank you so much, Janae.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate what Sarah said in the comments. Thanks for all of your hard work with the tax piece in the background. That's a lot of extra pieces to move along with there. So thank you for that. Any questions for Darla before we review Diana's report? I don't believe Diana jumped on, so we'll just talk about that quickly together. But in her report, she outlines kind of two big things that she put effort towards over the last few months. One was PAAE and award, or NAA award applications that she helped score and evaluate. And we'll talk about those results later. And then she also attended the webinar that PDE put on about science standards. You can kind of see her notes there in the in her report. And that kind of got followed up by another meeting that we participated in with Scott Shealy about the SAS system. I'm sure he'll talk about that at his report later. So unless there's any big questions, she does list the date for the NAA conferences there for the next few years. I'm sure conversations about what that looks like are in the works, but as of now, Nashville is our 2020 destination. So I also do not believe that Brian logged on. So we'll keep moving right into the treasurer's report, and you can view that on the screen. I don't have much of my own information. Darla, if you have anything to share from previous meetings, but there's his report for us to view. That's pretty quick and easy one. And
yeah, so I guess just really his notes about, oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So really just his note here, he's really been monitoring the situation with M&T Bank and just checking like what the minimums need to be on that scholarship checking account. And if it becomes anything that is kind of inconvenient for us as an amount to keep in that checking account, not accruing interest and things like that, that would just be kind of merged. So that way we don't get any penalties for like going below the minimums and things like that. I'm trying to figure out what page number I can jump to just to look at some of like the current totals for you here. So page 12. So everything has been paid out for the PAAE grant, and like he noted, membership has kind of we've hit the total amount of fees that we're expecting to get in. So this is probably where we're going to ride out the next couple of months until we know what the final failure to file penalties are for the IRS, paying out a scholarship. Once Doug Brown and that committee figures out who the recipients are, and then just starting to receive membership again in the fall. So we are kind of at the end of what would be our fiscal year, so to speak. So.
Any questions about the treasurer's report? Okay. And just for your own note, you would have received the meeting packet in the email that listed the RSVP and the dates and the links to the meeting. I'm sure we can make sure that they're readily available for you on the website as well after the meeting, so you can review them a little bit more closely. And up next would be Carol's report, the SAE specialist. I don't see her here on here either, so I'll just quickly summarize a few things from her report. She does talk about some farm show updates. Obviously, she's spending a lot of time right now on American Degree, so if you have edits to make, I'm sure you have heard from her about your applicants. If not, you can reach out and she can give you some pointers for that. In terms of farm shows, she lists some things about each of the ag ed departments and contests. So if there's some that you're particularly involved in, you may want to view that. She does make note about a new event that's being proposed towards the bottom of her report. Looks like it's related to landscape construction. So if that is an area of expertise or interest for you and your students, you may want to take some time to review that. Lots of, on the farm show note, lots of emails coming out about tags, things like that. So keep your eye out for that if you have students that fit into that category.
And let me just add real quickly, on Facebook, if you're not friends or you're not in that group, Carol does post on a regular basis into the PA friends who teach SAE. A lot of valuable resources and information on a pretty much daily basis. Pay attention to that if you haven't been doing so.
Yep, that's a great one. And I don't know that it's private, so you probably could add and join your pretty quickly. Okay, so I'm going to move into representative reports. Dr. Foster, I'm assuming you're speaking on behalf of Penn State. Did he disappear? His video is off. We'll come back to him.
I'm sorry, did you want me?
Would you like to give the program report?
Nah, not really. I'm just kidding. I'm just being silly. We're doing great. I hope you're doing great. The most important thing you need to know, and I think that I'm very serious on this, is that if you don't explicitly tell us what you need, it's hard for us to provide you what you want. And so one way we've tried to adapt that in the time of pandemic is if you actually look and open, which not everyone does, the Tuesday emails that come to you, there's been a new form added to the top of that, which says, hey, this is what I need help with, and then we'll respond to you. I know Jonathan Siemens on as the host, and I would like for him perhaps to pitch in, but I'm so impressed and proud of the work that he and Beth have done to create the Ag Ed 360. I want to make sure you understand the intent of that. Okay. The intent is you don't need more stuff shoved in your face as links and tools and cool gadgets and whiz bangs and all those kind of things. What you need is the opportunity to come together as a community of practice of ag teachers and say, this is working for me. How are you doing that in a very Pennsylvania specific way, not navigating through a national group or a different state and so forth. So the intent of those is to allow you to congregate around content. We have collected a list of tools, like everything that gets emailed across all the states. Tiffany's been helping me. We've created this thing to have, to pull, and we can share some things. But the intent is for you guys to talk and share among yourselves about what's working for you. And maybe you identify something that no one has an answer for. And that's something you can task to us to go put the legwork and elbow grease in to find if something exists. So that's the intent of how we're trying to be responsive and change to meet your professional development needs in these unusual times. I'd be glad. Jonathan, do you want to add anything to that, if you wouldn't mind?
I think you covered it pretty well. I would just like to add that the sessions that I facilitated have ranged anywhere from 4 attendees to 19 attendees. And the conversation and dialogue that went back and forth in both of those groups was equally as good. Obviously, when we had more in attendance, there was more resource sharing and there was more idea sharing and more troubleshooting conversations happening. However, our group of 4, which actually was this afternoon, it was a lot more intimate, but the collegial conversation and troubleshooting that was going back and forth amongst those 4 individuals was just as rich and meaningful as it was in the group of 19. So we don't expect you to be on every single session, but if there is a specific problem or challenge you're facing, I do truly encourage you to hop on one of those sessions as you're able, because chances are there's somebody that'll be on that call that'll help give you some words of wisdom to help get you where you need to be.
Hey, thanks, Jonathan. Heather asked a question about those sessions being recorded. I don't think so, Heather. Jonathan may correct me, because it's the way they're designed. Like, probably be painful to watch because people are just talking back and forth and not organized right. And so the intent is to give y'all like a space to share practice, not to push out new content that you would watch and reuse. I guess it's all about the intent of what we're trying to do there.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I have recorded some, I have not recorded others. And as Dr. Foster said, the intent was not to create a resource for you to view after the fact. However, we do have some of them. You know, for instance, the group of 19 was very beneficial because there was a lot of different resources, links, and people directing you to different online resources and materials to use. So we wanted to capture that and make it available for folks after the fact. So we do have recordings of these sessions, but we just don't quite know what to do with them. We don't know that we want to be blasting them out across the state. But again, it comes back to what do you specifically need? And if you send us that information via that form found in Tuesday blast email, we'd be glad to dig back through the archives and find one of these sessions in which a lot of resources or answers to problems is shared, and share the recording with you to view.
Thanks, Jonathan. Guys, I just can tell you, like, obviously, I'm trying to keep thumbs on and understand what's happening across the nation on this. This is not the only answer. This is not the best answer. I'm telling you, it's just us trying to do something. And so if PAAE as an entity, if they came and said, hey, we want to change this up, all right, we'll change up to fit your needs. We're trying to be responsible. We wanted to give you something. I'll give you an example. Buddy in Oregon was telling me about how they just did like a not by content. They did it open-ended, like every end of every day, like a happy hour type situation. And they were having 80 teachers log on. I could see that being good, fun, productive. I could also see it being annoying and those kind of things. Another example, we stole some of this idea. They adapted it. John and Beth thought real hard on it. But North Carolina was pushing out, because they have a statewide curriculum. And so they were pushing out like animal science hour, plant science hour, and those kind of things. And those teachers were coming together. I know New York is trying to pull teachers together in a routine matter. I think it's the situation where other teachers can talk to their colleagues in their building and figure out how the hell are we going to do this in an online setting. And so many of you guys are the only ag teachers, so you're on your own. And how can we provide a vehicle to let you share some of those best practices? So I hope you know our intent and what we're trying to do, and the willingness that if a great idea comes along, we're going to adapt to fit your needs. I thought I should also update you on the student teachers. Hey, they're going to get certified. It's weird. It looks different. They've been working hard, doing good things, attending professional development. The two that are on, well, three of them are on tonight are all-stars. I've been so impressed by how they've captured on Facebook, Twitter, and some of the things that they're doing. Call out Amanda Gagne for getting all up in a bee suit and making a bee video and pushing it. I'm proud of you guys for those kind of things. So we have had to do things we've never had to do. We've had to have them create a 35 hours a week professional development plan and document it. And how are they engaging and what are they doing, and present hours to document to the Department of Education so that they can certify what they will. They are on the job market, 2 out of the 3 on the call. And we will be looking to help them have new positions. We're next year's class, they're going through, I mean, and you guys, I'm sure you have all kinds of empathy for this. If you think about how we've normally done business, right? And think about when pandemic hit, and think about choosing your cooperating center and how you go through that and the normal process. So we're trying to have grace and empathy in every situation that we have in front of us, and know that we have to be flexible. But we'll have 8 candidates next year, and they've gone through interviews, and they've been encouraged to Zoom interview with additional people. And as we try to find those best homes for them as they go forward in their student teaching next year. But what I hope you hear as a theme is that, yeah, things are changing, but that doesn't mean we can't help you if in a specific way, if you ask, and that we should be responsive. I would like to think that Pennsylvania has a win of a group that's going to be responsive to give you things that you want, and you're not dependent, like so many of our states are, on what is the national organization going to do. So thanks for letting us share.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. The PA Ag Ed 360 and 60 is on the regional calendar. So if you have access to and are using the regional Google Calendar, they're linked in there with the URL that takes you to the Zoom link. So you can, both the morning and afternoon sessions are in there. So go ahead and check those out if you would like. I believe Mr. Brammer was on. I know they have a SOX event happening at the same time. So if he's still with us, we'll let him report on behalf of the State Association.
I'm still here.
Would you like to share now? Is that a good time?
Sure, that would be great. Let me just first of all say it's great to see everybody's face and to hear your voices. And I truly hope that everybody's doing fine and everybody's healthy. Giving just a couple of quick updates in regards to the FFA side. Obviously, 30 days ago, we were supposed to be in the middle of SLLC and doing all kinds of great things there. As everybody knows, that was canceled. I wanted to let everybody know that our board took action with the help of the foundation folks that if you had already paid for the SLLC conference this year, you will be getting a refund check. So those checks will be coming back. I've been a little bit hesitant to send those checks out, not knowing who's in the business offices or if those checks need to come to you to go into the FFA accounts, that I just didn't want them laying on somebody's desk until August. So the plan at this point is to wait until the fall to send those back out so that we make sure that they get in your hands and they get credited properly. If that's a problem for anybody, then just send me a private message and we'll see what else we can do to take care of them. But just know that if you did pay for SLLC, that those checks will be coming back to you. Obviously, everybody knows that we've canceled the conventions, having a physical convention in person, canceled all the competitive events. And of course, you heard earlier that we do have a CDE committee that will be reviewing options and trying to come up with solutions as to how we may qualify or send teams to the national convention should we have a national convention. And at this point, I have no reason to believe that we won't, but we have not heard any definites of yes or no. At this point, they're still planning on it, but we also know that that's a gathering of 70,000 people and it's only 6 months away. So we'll see what happens with that, but we'll keep our fingers crossed that something happens at that point. As far as what we may be planning, hopefully you've seen some of the things that our state officers have been doing over the last 30 days. They've tried to do a lot of things on social media just to reach out to students, making sure that we still have that connection piece with them. And they're still doing even more things. And we're in the process of trying to plan some additional things that they'll be doing and reaching out to students for. Erilyn Oatman, who is obviously from Manor FFA there in Lancaster County, last night and also last week did a segment live on Instagram and also on Facebook where she's actually teaching sign language. It's still there. If you haven't seen it, you can go on to either one of those social media platforms and you can see her video. It's quite remarkable, to be honest, to watch her actually do that and how she actually teaches sign language. So just doing some things like that. All of you should have received an email from me today that we're trying to gather as many photos of your seniors as we possibly can. We're going to be trying to put something together for the seniors this year with as many photos as we possibly can get. We're not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet, but we're still trying to work through those. Same thing with some type of a virtual program coming up in June. We're going to do something. We're not sure exactly how that's going to be done yet or what it's going to look like or what that'll even be called. We don't know if it's going to be called a convention or if it's going to be called a celebration, but there will be something virtual that will be online for students to watch. It will probably not be live just because we know the technology is great when it works, and when it doesn't work, then everybody looks horrible. So we don't want to be in the middle of something and be, thanking somebody or introducing somebody or doing a segment of awards or whatever the case may be, and actually have the screens freeze up and so on and so forth. So, but we are working toward that, and we formed a group of some folks that can actually come together virtually to help us get that done. If you've got any ideas for us that you would like to see us do, by all means, we are open for suggestions, and be sure to send that to me right away. Sarah Quigg asked if it's okay to give the photo link to seniors, or do you only want advisors to have access? No, that's fine. They can submit their own photos. If you're comfortable with them submitting them, you're perfectly welcome to do that. Students applied for the nominating committee. We are obviously moving ahead with the nominating committee in some fashion. My hope and my prayer is that I'll always have a chance to get them together in person. But if not, we're trying to put together a plan B of what that looks like virtually. But the applications are all in for the nominating committee. I think there was like 28 applications that we received, which was a really good number. They've been sent out to some different folks now to go through those applications and to pick 2 from each region. So hopefully by this time next week, we'll be able to announce that. The other piece is with state officer applications. If you have students who are interested in running for a state office, those applications are online and they are due May 1st. So please make sure that if you have students planning on running this year, that they get those applications filled out. There was a question earlier in regards to proficiency applications. If you have some state proficiency winners, those proficiency winners, those applications are due online to National FFA this year by August 1st. So that deadline has been extended. I would just recommend that you try to get it in prior to August 1st. There were some people also looking for feedback from the judges on the proficiencies, and I've reached out to Kelly Beer, who was in charge of that, to see if we can get any information about that to share with you. So stay tuned and we'll get that to you as soon as we can. The only other piece I'll leave you with and let you know is obviously we're conducting the SOX programs as we've done in the past in conjunction with these meetings. They're just done a little bit later. So at 7 o'clock tonight, we will actually do the Eastern Region SOX program. We've done 2 already, and they've actually turned out really, really well. I've been surprised and pleased all at the same time. We made sure that students had to register for those things, and then we sent them the links to get in once they were verified as being a member, just to kind of keep the security piece in place to make sure that we didn't have people joining those Zoom meetings that we didn't want to be there. So with that, if you have any questions for me, I'll stick around for a little bit more, but just know around 6:30, you'll see me kind of log off and go over and try to get that set up for the officers so that they can start their SOX meeting a little bit later. So Janae, thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Mike. I don't have a report from the alumni. If anyone has anything to share on their behalf, feel free to do so. If not, I'll let Phil or Megan bat it out for who wants to share the foundation report.
I'll start. Megan can fill in any gaps for me here. Sarah Sparks had her baby last week, if you guys were not aware of that. So exciting times for her. So if you're trying to get in contact with Sarah at all, give her a little extra time. Some notable things you've had up on your screen here for a little while. The first 3 for the foundation report. Farm show was a great success. Leadership campaign for ACES and SLC went well. Obviously we didn't hold SLC, so we're trying to figure out what to do there. Golf is tentatively scheduled for July. However, there is some discussion about maybe changing that to August or September, depending on how things go here. You may know that we've done the raffle in the past for some sort of item, and we decided to change the dates on that this year to go from summer to farm show, hoping that will get some more student involvement. The first year we did this, we had some really, really good chapter and student involvement in selling tickets. Last year we did not, so we're hoping to change that around, and maybe the change in dates will help with that rather than trying to sell into the summertime. Ag Progress Days, Again, heard some banter about that possibly being canceled. So 2 big fundraisers for us at this time are kind of in limbo right now. We do have a joint finance committee meeting with the association a week from now. And I think that is it. Happy to take any questions, or if Megan has anything to add, feel free to add, Megan.
Excellent job, Phil. Holly, I can share her address with you.
All right. Thanks for sharing, both of you. We will go to Scott Shealy with a report from the Ag Ed Commission.
Hi, everybody. Appreciate being invited to be a part of these regional meetings. We want to make sure that as we move into a more regular pattern of what we're doing with the commission, that we keep you all totally informed. You're one of our primary stakeholder groups, and we are trying to make that communication happen. You may know the commission was put together several years ago, had a slow start. We, I think, are finally developing some momentum. And one of the things that's been very good is that we have designated a staff for the commission, which are all people who have other jobs. But we've been meeting together to do that kind of collaboration. Jerry Huskin is a former district superintendent from Lancaster County. You all know who Lee Burkett is. Carol Fay, Mike Brammer, John Ewing, John Seaman, and the lady that took my place at Department of Ag and Workforce is named Sarah Gilgora. So that is the staff, that's the people we rely on to get a lot of the work done. And you know, that has been working really well. We're really at a critical point right now in the year for the commission. One of the things that is in legislation that we are mandated to do is to present a report as of May 1st. So most of the commission, most of the year, the commission is working on fact-finding, research, that kind of thing. It had a fairly active schedule in the meetings of hearing reports from people, and a number of your colleagues shared really successful presentations that I think helped the commission members to get a fairly good feel of what's going on in the Ag Ed system. So that actually then translates into 2 things. One is there's a work plan for the commission, which is ready to be voted by the commission at its meeting next Thursday. And then there's also then this report that actually goes to the General Assembly and to the governor. So I think that those of us who have worked on it feel that it's pretty appropriate in terms of what we've heard from all of you. Just to summarize some of that, just to give you sort of a heads up on the themes that have come out of it. I think there's 3 themes that I've been talking about for the last several months that I've seen in terms of things that come out of what we have heard from people. One of those is what I would call relevance, that we keep hearing over and over again that even though the ag and food industry is one of the top 3 industries in the Commonwealth and has significant needs in terms of workforce, that somehow or another our friends in state government and other places, of course nobody heard me say that, but don't really get it, that we need to have some degree of priority that's going on. So we're going to be working on how do we talk about the jobs that are open, how do we connect to workforce training, things like apprenticeship. A lot of the suggestions we have for curriculum revision have actually come out of some work that was done when we tried to do pre-apprenticeships with the schools and found out we need to do some additional work there. And we continue that work as well. The other part is that I think that everybody's beginning to see that the occupational advisory committees are a key part of making sure that we're relevant at the local level. And so we hope to be able to do some technical assistance along those lines and to share some additional ideas about how to do that. So relevance and really connecting with the needs of industry is one part of what we have heard. The second thing is that just, this is probably if there's anything loud and clear, it's that we need to try to engage students at an earlier age. We have heard over and over and over again this idea that, particularly I think a lot of times driven by STEM programming, that agriculture is such a good way to teach STEM, and that people at the teachers at the earlier grade levels are looking at ways that we can bring some of that ag content into the classroom. We've also heard from people who are involved who are informal educators, who are not necessarily teaching in schools, but who teach in other contexts. And we've heard from them that they are in need of curriculum, some ideas, and there may be some sharing on that. So we have put together, the commission has a K through 8 working group really to tackle some of this. A lot of what we've been doing in the last 3 or 4 meetings is really just to get to know one another and what each other does. It's amazing how compartmentalized people are in this state when you do this kind of work. We're trying to break down some of those barriers. But, and again, anytime any of you who are interested in being a part of that group, it meets during the day, unfortunately, but you know, we are interested in having input. Probably the biggest thing that has come out of this conversation is that PDE has actually opened up the idea of sharing and using the SAS portal as a way to share some of the curriculum that both formal and informal educators may need. If you've used SAS before, you know that it has a fairly much of a formal education kind of orientation to it. That I think is going to change. And so one of the things, I was just with the folks this morning, kind of doing some additional negotiations, but we're going to try, and we'll have some information out to you sooner than later. But if you are on SAS, there is a new community that has developed there. The problem that we saw when we first went on is that nowhere was agriculture mentioned. So that we've gotten that changed, and we have a way, I think, that we can begin to recognize agriculture and begin to collect ag curriculum. You may be interested to go on to that part of the site. I think there's about 20 or 25 pieces of curriculum that were done as a part of the Pulse program at the IU13. Those are sort of the test for getting curriculum up. And one of the things you'll see is sort of the format for how they would like to present it. The other thing that I've really insisted on is that in addition to the other kind of standards, that there be a crosswalk to the AFNR standards as well. So they are listed on every piece of curriculum also. So that I think has great promise, and we'll see where that goes. And then finally, I think local leadership, you know, we definitely we need to empower local teachers, districts, that kind of thing. One of the things that we did do was we've convinced Department of Education to open up several of our SIPs for vocational certification, and they have agreed to, there are 6 additional ones to add to horticulture, where there will be a vocational certification available. There'll be more on that that'll be coming as well. But also one of the other big things that's out there that the commission still has not dealt with, but several of your members of PAAE are very great advocates for, are the questions of funding. Where does the funding go? How's it used? Can there be some guidelines to districts? You know, are we getting the fair share in the ag programs of what comes out to the district? So those are all things. And then the overall teacher shortage issue, which I think, you know, maybe we have some answers to. That's another concern of the commission as well. So I think those are things you're going to hear about: relevance, engagement, local leadership. There'll be some fairly aggressive initiatives that will move forward. We're really looking for your help and your guidance. We had a great meeting with your regional directors last week where we talked about the SAS information. It was great to hear from them, and I think we're taking their advice as we move forward. I think that's a case example of how we'd like to do business in the future. So Sorry, a little bit long-winded, but you know, these are, I think, the times where we can begin doing some things differently. And we hope the commission is a resource for you going forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Any questions for him on behalf of the council? Okay, well then we will make our way into committee reports. Ron was not able to join us this evening, so there's no regional coordinator report. Obviously, with the decisions made about CDEs at the state level, that influence CDEs at the regional level, and most of you probably saw those emails that came out a few weeks ago. So the first committee report we'll have is member services. The big item of business for them has been the 4th annual now Run Across PA Challenge, which came out and teams were started. We're in week 3, I do believe now. So best of luck to those of you who are competing in that. There's prizes awarded typically at summer convention. I'm sure they'll be given out at a time in the near future. So that's the big item for member services. If you have questions as I go through these committee reports, just drop them in the chat box for now so we can kind of breeze through some of these. Marketing committee is next. They gave out stickers, PAAE logo stickers at ACES to all dues paying members. And we have more. So if you would have a burning desire to decorate with them, you can let me know. However, I won't be able to get them to you until who knows when. So that is, they're on my desk at school. They're locked up. They had great results from the pins that we sold at the apparel sale. So I think that was a successful item to add, might be something they continue to sell in the future. And they also did have some people participate in the new member recruitment challenge. So that seemed to be another successful item that they put together. I think they tag teamed with another committee for that as well. In terms of strategic planning, that report from Dave is there. They're just continuing on as they have been in terms of monitoring everything in the big plan document. And then they would give their report at summer conference as normally scheduled. Public policy is the one that has a little bit more to share. They had conducted a need assessment and the results of those items are shared here in the report. They also have a interest form or question form that they had created, and that is can be shared out if you have any general thoughts or policy issues that you'd like them to be aware of. It just is an opportunity for you to jot down those thoughts, and they can pass it along to the appropriate group or individuals for action to be made. It's now up on your screen there, the instructions for submitting that form. So if you think of things that would better the organization, and that would be a good avenue for you to submit them and turn those in. In terms of policy and bylaws, that committee has met and has been reviewing bylaws and policy and are continuing to update that. Draft copies were to come at summer conference. I'm sure there may be a different way that is delivered, but several people were given a draft to review at ACES to look through that and make sure everything seemed to be coming together well. Adam is here. I'll let you share anything you have for Finance Committee.
Yeah, thanks. As you can see on the screen, the first statement goes back to our January board meeting. We did vote and authorize to pay for $500 or move $500 from the NEA delegates line item to Three Circle Summit to pay for our PAAE president to attend that. Second bulleted item or second item here relates to the IRS audit. Darla filled us in on that at the start of the meeting. So if you have any additional questions, please address them to me or address them to her, and we can cover whatever you need to know about. Third line item, this might be a question directed towards John or Dr. Foster. We were aware that Penn State paid PAAE $3,500 for summer conference. Now that summer conference is canceled, I'm not sure if we still need to send a letter or if we had already sent the letter, if you don't need to act on that now.
Yeah, you're not getting that money. I don't make that decision. I'm just kidding. So
yeah, just so you're aware, in case you weren't.
So you had not made the request yet for the typical $3,500 for your summer conference.
I had not typed up and sent the letter unless Darla or Casey or one of the other officers would have that info.
I think that
Yeah, this was about the time like where things were going downhill with just kind of knowing what the state of the next couple of months were. So it wasn't completed, so that means we don't need to give a refund and deal with anything more paperwork heavy than it needs to be. So it's actually good the way that it worked out.
Sure.
And it did, that no funds were transferred in this case.
I would encourage you, Darla, as president, to reach out to John Ewing and just confirm that there may be some unique budgetary situations that would be beneficial if y'all just have a talk, see where he's at.
Can do, thanks.
And I can provide additional clarity to that if needed. You can call.
Very good. Thanks.
Wonderful, thanks. And last but not least, at the March board meeting, the 2020-2021 budget was approved. As you can see, there was no funding allocated for a lobbyist, so we're keeping ourselves out of hot water with the IRS there. Anybody have any questions?
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Adam. We will finish up committee reports with professional growth. Congratulations to all of our award winners. The East really cleaned up this year, so that is encouraging to get to watch all of you as colleagues here in our corner of the world get to do cool things and get recognized for it. So congratulations to Allison, Holly, Mark, and Stephen as well for their hard work for those different award areas. The center is recognized for their cooperation with PAAE, and Sarah Beth Fulton for outstanding service. Some of those award recipients will move on to the regional level now for NAAE selection, and that is linked there as well. Other items related to that committee that were not listed here would be Ideas Unlimited. So considering how we don't have a summer conference, I'm sure if that's something you're interested in participating in, NAA will continue to, and we'll look at how that submission process will go. But if you have an interest in that, just stay tuned. We'll kind of figure that out. Build the plane while we fly it kind of situation. We're getting real good at that around here. In terms of special committees, summer conference, I'm not sure if John is still on, if there's anything specific he would like to add about the current decisions that were made in terms of canceling, and there's not a whole lot to add to that, I'm sure, but if he's still hopping around here.
Yeah, I'll just add that the planning committee was extremely excited and proud of the conference that we had pulled together. And it was a very difficult decision to make. Our biggest concern was when Governor Wolf announced that schools were to remain closed for the remainder of the school year, that district personnel, first of all, district policies may have prohibited a large number of ag teachers from attending. Additionally, we didn't know what district personnel to process payment for the conference, et cetera, was going to look like. So we didn't want a large number of folks missing out on what was truly a great conference schedule with a lot of fantastic professional development lined up. So the committee just agreed that the unfortunate but best decision to make for this year was just to postpone it and hope that we can offer a repeat of what would have been this year next summer.
Okay, thanks for adding that. Scholarship Committee, Sunshine Committee, not much new.
Janae, can we go back to Sarah's question, or just like the thought moving forward, because this obviously impacts the Eastern region since you guys were slated to host next year. So Sarah had the question, is there a need for an annual summer conference? Did you have any other thoughts with that, Sarah, or ideas for what it could look
I
like?
guess I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I just know being on the planning committee, it's hard to come up with unique stuff that they didn't do the year before, that, you know, like you're relying on a body of 10, 15 people, and that can be really strenuous. Like maybe if we did every other year, and then again, those scholarships that we send people to other conferences like CASE and other things, we really just every other year, I think it would put less stress. Like you'd have 2 years as a planning committee to really start putting stuff together. I guess I'm just asking the question, like, is there something that we have to do that would mandate having a conference every single summer?
Since your bylaws committee is working, I would make sure that they had wrote in a clause for electronic meetings or elections that could be conducted, so that you wouldn't need to meet as a group. That's one thing. If you think about installing your officers and leadership as a primary item of business of an organization, but you're right, that could be done in an online setting. Since Neil is on the call as chairman, I'm saying, dude, you better be reading as thinking about if the pandemic goes on, could we still do business?
Yeah, I believe something like that was written in as a clause, but I haven't looked at it for a while.
Sarah, I think those are valid questions, and especially since there won't be anything this summer, that'll give us a chance to really sit back and look what is essential, like we're doing with many parts of our careers and lives right now, what is actually essential. Because like you said, it is time and it's a commitment to pull that conference off. And like you said, a lot of times it does end up being the same people in the region each 4 years that you host. So that is a valid concern to bring up. So
I'll maybe
you're off the hook for a year.
I was going to maybe jump in with a thought for this too. Even just from an attendee, not from the planning committee, the costs, obviously, some people that is an issue. The travel, to especially when you're in the east going to the west or west going to east, it can get expensive. And then also, you know, there's all sorts of different professional development opportunities. Maybe that opens up a week for you to do something else one year that you were maybe looking to do, whether that's like the National Agri-Science Ambassadors or a CASE course or something that you can maybe switch it up. So that's something, if we can come up with a good way to conduct the business of the organization on those off years, I think it's definitely something to discuss further.
Well, I feel too, like exactly what you're saying. Like, I think it could also breed more innovative ideas. Like if you're sent, like if we do even years or odd years or whatever it is, we do our own, and then the opposite, you send people, or you, again, let people really fill up their summers with other things, then they have more to share. Like, I feel like it's almost like inbreeding. Like we just have the same ideas and same workshops. It would give us a chance to, again, we know this year cycle we're in state, and then the next year cycle you can do out of state. And again, some people might not have anything, but you know, that's a professional thing. That's something they need to take care of. Like, do we have to do that every year to be a good professional organization for our members? I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying anything that we've ever planned is not worthy or not good. It's just, let's ask some questions now and see, maybe it does drive positive change, like I said.
Carla, can we add this to the next board meeting agenda as a discussion topic?
Yep, I certainly have it written down already, and then really just to follow up with our bylaws and see what we legally can do this summer and cannot do, and what would need to get altered for that. So, yep.
Perfect. And Sarah, if you want to formalize any thoughts you have, if you want to just email it to me, and then I can share those or type them up to the board meeting.
If I can I comment on that idea of not having the convention every year?
Mm-hmm.
We good?
Yeah,
so speaking from 35 years of experience, I remember back when I started that every year for 10, 12 years, it was hosted by, conducted by Penn State and held on campus is the way it went. And PAAE leadership at the time, we were getting stale doing it that way, and we chose to start moving it around the state to its current format. I'm just commenting, I'm not saying good or bad or ugly. I'm just saying that it's fascinating to me to see how that thing has evolved, where it once upon a time was in the hands of somebody else completely, almost completely, as far as I knew as a beginning teacher. I don't know if there was any ag teacher involvement in the planning of the event. And we basically took it over from the Department of Ag and Extension Education, which wasn't called that at the time. I forget what it was called, but and now it's just fascinating to me that we're wondering if it should continue to occur annually. It boggles my mind is all. Just throwing my perspective in there. I'm not saying yes, no, good, bad, otherwise. I'm just throwing my perspective in for you to consider further as time goes on.
Thanks. What other feedback do you have now? Obviously, the board will continue to address this, but Darla has a good point. It does come back to us in the near future. So, all right. Well, like Adam said, if you have thoughts, you can pass them on to either him or I as we move forward. In terms of unfinished business, we make our way towards the bottom of our agenda. That item is just the PAAE Executive Secretary position. Darla touched on this earlier in her report. I believe yep, it's in this packet.
Yeah, it's in the packet at the end. I switched back to the agenda. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So you can view that if you would like to see the new and updated version, but like she said, it's just a summarized version of what had been there previously. So that's there in terms of unfinished business. Any questions on that moving forward? Okay, president-elect candidates, we are looking for them at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong when I say that, Darla, but there is not many interested at this point. One potential,
but no paperwork yet.
So if anyone else has a recommendation or is interested, please seek out your board members so that we can move forward and discuss what that process looks like. In terms of regional vice presidents, my term ends this year. I'm sorry, speaking on a new position here, I'm not exactly sure what needs to happen tonight. We need to re-elect or open the floor. Charlie, if you want to.
Yeah, it would be awesome because technically, because you filled in for Casey last fall, and this would have been Casey's end of the term. So in order to keep that alternating sequence, we don't want to replace two people at once. You've had a quick 4 months, Janae, but it's been awesome. So at this point, we would need someone to start the new term that would then end in 2020. So if you would be up for that, you would certainly be available to do so. Or if there's any others that are interested. She's done a great job the past 4 months.
Darla, could you tell me, is it 2 terms are the term limits for a regional vice president? Is that the rule?
Correct. 2-year terms.
Would Casey have completed at least 50% of her term before Janae stepped in? Casey completed at least 50% of that second term.
Correct.
And so the reason I bring that up, Ms. McMichael is eligible for 2 additional terms. This fulfilling of the end of this Casey's term does not count against her term limits. FYI, just keeping everybody honest here about all this kind of fun stuff.
That's great.
Yeah, I am willing to return. Looks like I've been nominated already. So, and if there's anyone else interested, of course, don't want to. So, Darla, do we need to a formal vote at this meeting You have to let,
if someone would like to move that they nominate you as regional vice president, that would be awesome. Just so it can be in the recording in the minutes that I'll come right up with.
Gretchen had done it in the chat.
Great.
And lots of feedback coming in here.
And you can just ask if there's any objections. I don't think anybody's going to object. And then, hey, unanimous consent. Mine is installed with a mandate.
I can do it real quickly. So there's a motion on the floor made by Gretchen Digman, second by Holly Overholtzer to elect Janae McMichael as Eastern Region Vice President. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And none are opposed. The ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you. There we go. Last thing, current needs of members. How can we support you? I have one thing to add in there before I allow you to contribute your thoughts to that item on the agenda. The Northeastern Equipment Dealers Association, who has actively been developing the Ag Equipment Service Technician Pre-Apprenticeship Program, lots of names there, is working with a partner to develop a hydraulics curriculum for Pennsylvania ag teachers. That is primarily, it started with an online basis, and then I guess there's some lab materials that likely will come with it. There's still a lot of information in the works, but the party that they've been partnering with to develop this curriculum has asked for the ag teachers to complete a needs assessment that asks specifically about access to technology. So I will share a Google form with you all that just will take a few minutes for you to give feedback in terms of what access to technology do your students have and do you have. I guess part of this curriculum is an app on obviously a phone and then the student's device that they would also use. So pretty exciting that this is something that's in the works and that they're willing to do, knowing that that's an area of need in the pre-apprenticeship program. And as ag teachers, we need to have that piece. So if you teach that content area, I would, speaking on behalf of both of those groups, appreciate your feedback. So I will send that out to you here soon so that you can take care of that. Okay, any other current needs, things that we can bring to the floor before we wrap things up?
I have a question.
Scott, let's start with you first here, who's popping up.
I just wanted to add to what you just said that I didn't say this in the midst of my comments, but hydraulics, electronics, and diesel are the three content areas in Ag Mech that we seem to be coming up short on. And so, you know, what this trade association is doing, and we have supported them through the commission, and Penn State has been very helpful as well, is really an attempt to get ahead of those three gaps that we found. So again, we need some help there. The key thing is that when the people who are in the places where we want to have our kids hired, you know, look at what we do, they're saying, we need those three things to be included, and we don't have them at the level that they need them. So that's really what that's all about. And there's a bigger, you know, picture piece of this, but that's what goes to that connection between what we do in classroom in K through 12 and the pre-apprenticeship. So I just wanted to underscore that. It's a pretty important deal.
Thanks, Scott.
If I could just provide a quick update that piggybacks on what Scott said. As you may already know, hopefully, that the center, along with NEDA and the support of the commission, has coordinated 2 professional development workshops this coming summer and scheduled for June, one of which being hydraulics, the other of which being a repeat of a fantastic course that we offered last year for the first time on electrical diagnostics. Both of those workshops, as we sit here tonight, are still scheduled to happen. However, there's a couple different factors that we need to get some answers to as to whether or not they will ultimately happen or whether or not we will need to cancel them. So if you have an interest in either of those 2 events, one is June 14th or 15th through the 18th. The other is the 21st through the 25th. Please sign up. Okay. At this point, we don't know what the future of those events is, but sign up now so that we know that the interest is there, so that can help drive our decision making.
Okay. There's somebody else, I believe, that was trying to add some thoughts there before Scott shared.
This is Lori. I just had a question if anyone else tried to add certifications for the, I think it's the CATS reporting system or whatever it is at the end of the year. That was missing some for my program SIP, and my OAC had approved them in the fall, but the state website is still saying it's the same as it was before. Is anyone else on that? Or
If I remember from the fall, yeah, go ahead, Darla.
Yeah, I know Carol Faye has been like hounding them with emails like every other week, trying to get an answer. And I don't think she's gotten an answer, but I've literally like been CC'd on emails for like a solid month with her trying to figure out, have they been accepted, are they added, etc. So Carol will be your best bet because they may talk to her first before they let us know.
okay, thanks for the feedback.
Any other thoughts before we adjourn?
Real quickly, 2 comments or thoughts about upcoming events. Looking for a fall regional meeting date, and also the concept of planning all of our dates for the year. We would typically get together as a region, usually the day after or the week after State Activities Week.
Right.
State Activities Week being canceled, what do we want to do? How do we want to attempt to meet again as a group and organize these dates? Is there a best way to do that?
Quite honestly, in my rather quick opinion, I don't know that the summer calendar entirely needs to be planned, or the meeting that plans the calendar in the summer doesn't necessarily entirely need to be done in an in-person meeting. I think a lot of it is just changing the dates from the calendar in last year. And because we've allowed ourselves to move some things digitally, we can probably contribute our own school's dates in a different way. However, we might be ready to see each other if we are allowed to see each other at that point in time. I'm open to the suggestion to either option. Obviously, Ron's not here to give his thoughts on that, knowing that that is a large component or a large piece of what he does. Lots of dates coming up here in the chat right now in terms of when schools are ending. Other thoughts?
Janae, I would maybe suggest reaching out to Ron because he
Internet's really cutting out.
does normally in the sound.
I'll reach out to Ron Frederick and we'll coordinate.
Adam, I would, if he's willing, I would not be opposed to meeting this way to plan that calendar, to be quite honest. And I think by the time we get to that, and I don't want to speak for the whole group, but by the time we get to that point in our year, we might still be kind of pulling some loose ends together. Might not be ready to sit down in person with the calendar. We might have to wait until a little bit further in the summer. But I think starting with Ron is probably not a bad idea. In terms of the fall meeting, we might also need to wait until the summer as well to see where we're at in terms of in our buildings, traveling, things like that. So
Yeah, that was going to be my point. You can wait until the summer to set that.
I would imagine the other regional meetings made similar decisions. Is that correct, Darla?
Oh no, they picked dates. They were just going for it.
They're committed.
Yeah, so I can give you 2 dates to avoid whenever your region gets together, and then I'll do the same for the West. So you should avoid October 8th, which is earlier than you guys meet anyway, and then October 22nd.
I guess hypothetically, if we end up meeting this way again, what's it hurt to have a date on the calendar? That's always an option. If we look to our historical time, let me get over to my calendar here. So that would be roughly November 12th. Casey, we did normally, it is just on the agenda. We don't have to make a decision on it today. How about a head nod? If you're good to wait till our summer planning meeting. Perfect. I like that. Thank you, Gretchen, for your thumbs up. Okay, there's no other thoughts. Adam, if you don't have anything else to add to that there, then we'll move to adjourn. If someone wants to make that happen.
I move to adjourn.
All right. Is there a second to make it official?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Okay, friends, thanks for joining tonight virtually. We appreciate you being flexible, as we all are. In these times, stay safe, stay healthy. Reach out to us if you need anything.
Yep. Good to see you guys.
Yep.
Reach out if you have any questions or issues.